Hello Planeteers, welcome to week 9 of the Weekly Planet. This is the final edition of the Weekly Planet for this quarter and the last week of classes. So congratulations. Think back for a minute about what's happened over this last 9 weeks, just in this class alone. The challenges that you've overcome, the skills you've learned. Really, with each and every one of you, I've seen a real commitment to the class and to the stories that you're working on. You guys have all worked really hard. I know some of you have had stories that are going to be published and some of you haven't, but I really give credit to all of you for what you've done over the last 9 weeks, and I hope you've gotten a lot out of the class too. So you have one more week, and in that week you have one main job left, and that job is to find story ideas for the fall quarters class. Think back to that first week of this class, and one of the first things that we did was we showed you a list of story ideas, the story list. And it's from that most of you got the stories that you've been working on for the last 9 weeks. So where did those story ideas come from? Most of them were from the class beforehand, doing just this assignment. And so this is your final sort of sort of contribution to the success of the planet in the coming quarter. And it's really important. I know that you guys are probably thinking about the summer and you're eager to be done, but this final assignment is really critical. I think you guys have probably already learned that having a really great story idea from the start can really be a big boost to your success in the class. And having a weak story idea from the start can really add an extra challenge. And so I'm really asking you to make this final effort to seek out great story ideas for the coming quarter. I'm going to have more details about exactly what the story idea assignment is like at the end of this video. And at the end of this video, you're also going to hear from Olivia Marsh, who's going to be the editor-in-chief in the fall. She's going to talk to you about the theme of the magazine in the fall, which of course will steer what kinds of stories you're seeking for your story ideas. So stay tuned to the end of the video for that. In the meantime, let me just run through the basics of what's happening between now and the end of the quarter. Okay, so first thing, for those of you who are getting stories published, you're going to be doing the final fact-checking on the story. Your editor should already be in touch with you about that, but you might need to tie up a few loose ends after you've seen this video. So please take care of that as soon as you can. Those of you who are getting published will also hear back near the end of this week or the beginning of next week from editors with a very final draft. Before it gets published, they're going to ask you to take a look at it and make sure that there are no errors that got incorporated into the story. All right. So that's that part of it. You're going to have one final tweet this week, so keep up the good work on that. I've really appreciated the work you guys are doing on that. One last comment box. Again, your feedback has really been valuable, and I hope that it's been helpful for you too. You're going to have a formal class evaluation. That's an assignment on Canvas, and that class evaluation is something that I will certainly look at to improve for the coming quarter, and I think it's something that other people in the administration might look at as well. So please take the time to do that. You also need to fill out a quiz on Canvas for me, indicating whether or not you want to take this class for a grade or pass-fail. The default is pass-fail, and so if I don't hear from you, that's the grade that you'll get. But if you want a letter grade, fill out that quiz and let me know. If you have any questions, obviously get in touch with me. We have the last class this coming Wednesday, and just like we all gathered together at the start of the quarter for the very first class, we're going to gather together again for the final class. So that's a chance for us to celebrate, to recognize all the hard work that you've done. And also we're going to meet with Linda Mapes, who is the main environmental reporter at the Seattle Times. She is fabulous. She is a terrific journalist, and she's a really great public speaker and just really inspiring to hear from. So attendance for that class is required. It will be part of your grade, but I also just strongly encourage you to do it because Linda is really great to hear from. So plan on that, 2 p.m. this coming Wednesday at the usual Zoom link. Then finally, of course, there's the story idea assignment. So right now, I want to take you down into the details of that. Let's take a closer look. We're going to start here on the modules page. If you're on week 9 in the modules, go down to story ideas, all. We're going to click on this and go to the story ideas assignment. Okay, I'm just going to walk you through the details here. Again, right here, at least 2 good story ideas for the next issue. That's what you need to have for this assignment. They need to be newsworthy, environmental, and with a description of the story and the underlying issue, as well as at least 4 initial source leads. So this quarter, we did stories that were both environmental and about the pandemic. Next quarter in the fall, each story is going to have an environmental component. There might be a COVID element to it as well, but there has to be an environmental angle. And the theme for the fall issue, which Olivia is going to discuss in more detail, is transformation. So all stories need to have some element of transformation or change in them. More details later in the video. For full points on this assignment, one story must be based in Whatcom or Skagit counties. So we want 1 story nearby. The other story can be based anywhere in Washington and British Columbia, from Seattle north to Vancouver. So you can have both stories nearby, but at least 1 story has to be nearby, and the other one needs to be within reasonable driving distance. If you have something that's further away in eastern Washington, on the other side of the Cascades, down in Oregon, please consult with me. Sometimes we'll pursue them, even though there's a lot of extra effort involved. A note here, important, check the Planet website to make sure the story you're pitching hasn't already been done. Go to the Planet website, on the first page, search under a few keywords to make sure that a story looking a lot like yours hasn't already been done, because we're not going to do another duplicate. All right. Each story idea must have a slug, right? 1 to 3 words describing the topic. A pitch, so that's detailed 2 to 3 paragraphs about the story. And the pitch has to include a couple of things. It has to include a detailed story with specific angles, right? We've discussed at the start of this quarter, what are the elements of a story? You have to have action, characters, a specific setting. The story idea should not just be a generic issue or something saying, yeah, we should write about this organization, they're cool, right? If you see an organization that's really cool, that's doing good work, look into more details about an exact story that can be done about that organization. Is there some kind of project that they're pursuing? Is there some kind of work that they're involved in? Could we do a story about that work? So you have to get more specific. You have to explain why it's significant or newsworthy. What's the big deal? What's the big picture behind this story? And finally, as I just noted, an explanation of the broader issue that the story connects to. A significant magazine story will talk about the specific, but it'll also be able to zoom out and talk about how it connects to something bigger. There's 2 samples of pitches below. You need to have 2 human sources with contact information. They need to be specific names, not just generic references like call a person at this organization. The human sources also need to be realistic people that should be contacted. So you can't include things like President Trump or Governor Inslee, right? Like, these need to be realistic people that people can talk to. And another thing to note is that many of you have now learned that if you're trying to reach somebody at, say, a corporation, you don't start out by trying to call a CEO. You call the media office first. And so if you're listing sources at a company or at an agency, please include information both about the person they want to interview, but also contact information for the press contact. That's going to speed things up a lot. Finally, written sources. 2 or more written articles. These can be news articles, because news articles are often a great way to start getting oriented on a story, if they're substantive. All right, and you post the story ideas on the Canvas discussion board. Okay, here's 2 sample pitches that I want to show you, just so you can really wrap your head around what these look like. The first one, here's the slug, the rats among us. Chelsea Hemsworth, a University of British Columbia professor and veterinarian, has spent the last 4 years examining a little-known part of Canada's poorest neighborhood. It's rats. Equipped with rat traps, syringes, tiny ear tags, and an array of DNA sequencing tools, she and her helpers have scoured the east side of downtown Vancouver for its whiskered residents. Her work offers fascinating insights into how these little studied animals live amongst us. It also challenges the effectiveness of traditional pest control techniques and raises the prospect that rodents are reservoirs of disease that can pass between rats and people. Okay, so we have a clear character, Chelsea Hemsworth, location in Vancouver, and then significance, right? A little bit about what her work tells us. There's some more details here that I'm not going to get into right now, but you can feel free to read it as you're modeling your story. And then down below, here's the bigger picture. The story can explore the growing insights into urban rats and the potential links to human health by focusing on the work done by Hemsworth in Vancouver. You can also mention work being done in New York City, New Orleans, and Brazil. A rat trapping field trip with researchers working in Hemsworth's lab, or ideally with Hemsworth herself, is a must. So there you go. Human sources. Here's the list of the human sources with contact information right there. Here's written information. And here's some news stories as a bonus, right? Okay, now here's pitch 2. This is closer to home in Whatcom County. Manure from large-scale animal feedlots have contaminated the drinking water of up to 27,000 residents in northern Whatcom County. I'm not going to go into all the details, but I want to note a few things. So this is about a regulatory issue. You spell out not just, hey, this is a regulatory issue, you should write about it, but some more details about how you might write about it. This story would focus on the competing arguments over the permit, with dairy farmers pushing for less stringent regulations and environmentalists seeking more stringent ones. On the dairy side, the owners of Edaleen Dairy, north of Linden, have been outspoken. On the environmental side, Resources, the Bellingham-based environmental group, is the most active. So there you go, you have two main sides to go talk to. This story would look at their views of the matter. It would also provide an opportunity to explore the bigger challenge and threats posed by feedlot pollution here and around the country. There's the big picture. We have some news stories. We have some written work. Now for human context, notice here, we've got Bob Mitchell, Robert Mitchell at Western, John Jennings, a contact at the Department of Ecology, but then after that we have a Department of Ecology media contact, right? Because maybe John Jennings isn't going to be available, but you can start with a media contact. And then look, there's contact person for Resources, the environmental group, and Mitch Morlag at Edaleen Dairy. So we have specific contacts. So I hope this gives you a good idea. I want to stress, I'm actually a very tough grader on this story list assignment because I really want to encourage you to produce high quality story ideas. It's really what students in the next quarter need to get a great start. So please do your best on this story. Now let's go over to Olivia Marsh and learn more about the theme.
Hi, everyone. So I'm really excited to announce that the theme that we have chosen for fall quarter is the theme of transformation. So as you guys start to look for story ideas that fit into this theme, I wanted to go over kind of what we had in mind with the theme of transformation. I think there is a lot of flexibility within this theme and it can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. Here I have started kind of a list of possible ways it could be interpreted, but I don't think in any way you should limit yourself to thinking about transformation in this way. I think it can be interpreted a lot of different ways. But just to kind of go over some of them, I think our idea with the theme of transformation is picking something that can kind of talk about all the different changes that society and the environment is going through as our world changes too. I think this can cover ways that humans are reacting, humans that are changing. It can also just on a very fundamental level be about how organisms are changing, either due to their natural way of existing or in a response to environmental changes. I think stories could also cover the policy changes, how humans are changing their way of thinking, changing their way of living, and to kind of react to environmental changes. Um, and again, these are just kind of a start to some ideas. I would like to go into some more specific examples now. So the first story idea I would like to present to you guys is change on the Chehalis. So the Chehalis River Basin has flooded 18 times in the past 20 years, causing damage to business and homes. In an effort to reduce the risk of flooding, the Basin Flood Control District proposed a dam or a flood retention facility on the Chehalis River. Not everybody is on board with this plan, however. A recent environmental impact statement draft released by the Department of Ecology confirmed the dam would significantly degrade habitat, putting salmon populations in decline and even risk of local extinction. In lieu of the statement, the Quinault Indian Nation has come forward to voice their opposition of the costly dam that would have unavoidable ecological impacts. So this story could kind of cover the controversy here. On one hand, it's cities that are being impacted that are in the river basin, businesses and people's homes that are being impacted kind of on a yearly basis, causing lots of economic costs that people have to deal with. And then on the other hand, the solutions that have currently been proposed all kind of come with a cost of putting the salmon populations that have significant cultural value at risk. And then, as mentioned in this briefing, the environmental impact statement is currently just a draft, and the finalized version is coming out later this year. And I think a potential story could address some of the things discovered in that statement. The other story idea I'd like to broach is protecting the bees. So reports are flooding in across Western Washington about sightings of the Asian giant hornet. This 2-inch long insect was only recently found for the first time in the US, just up the highway in Blaine, Washington. Any invasive species can wreak havoc on any ecosystem, disrupting the carefully held balance, and these hornets are no exception. While concerned citizens have reported numerous sightings, only a handful have actually been confirmed. Able to decimate honeybee hives within hours, these hornets pose a risk to pollinators whose populations are already threatened. While traps and cages can be used to protect hives, experts don't know what the presence of this hornet means for other native insects. So this story could kind of talk about the impact of an invasive species on the environment and how an entire ecosystem can be impacted, but it could also talk about how humans respond to situations like these and what changes have to be put in place to kind of react to the problem. So I think both of these stories kind of deal with very different aspects of change. One kind of changing the physical environment, and then one how we react to the changing environment. And again, this is just a start, so I encourage you as you start to look for story ideas, think about ways that you might think of transformation. How do you define it? What stories do you think fall in? I think there's a lot of opportunity to be creative within this theme. So good luck. Thank you.
All right, Planeteers, that's all from me for this final version of the Weekly Planet. It's really, again, been a pleasure working with you this quarter. I wish we could have done it in person, but given the circumstances, I think we've still made the best of it that we can, and you guys have certainly done great work. So I look forward to seeing you on Zoom on Wednesday. If you ever need anything from me this quarter or in the future, please don't hesitate to get in touch. I'm happy to respond in any way. So thanks again for a great quarter. Take care. Be well.